So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. Hi, it's Dan and welcome to the podcast. So in this podcast, we're going to talk to you about the very first time I felt like a real expert. And so actually, some of this podcast ties into some of the things that we're talking about in terms of imposter syndrome, where you constantly feel like, if the mask slips, they will see underneath the mask and find out who you really are, that you haven't got a clue, that you're winging it, that you have no idea what you're doing. And I just think a lot of people feel like that. And let me rephrase that, actually. I think a lot of people who do know what they do know what they're doing, often feel like they don't know what they're doing. And people who haven't got a freaking clue are the most confident people, and unjustified so. So let me rephrase that. If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, it's probably because you do know what you're doing. If you've not got imposter syndrome, this is a very sweeping statement, by the way, which a lot of people are going to disagree with. If you don't have imposter syndrome, you haven't got a clue what you're doing. So I just feel sometimes a lot of people who are actually, they're on the path, they know what they should be doing, the marketing's out, and the machine is actually up and running, and it's generating cash, and the thing works, they often feel like it's going to break at any moment. That's why it actually works, is because they're constantly working, trying to keep the machine on track, trying to keep it up and running, and they're trying to anticipate problems before they even get there. Whereas people who aren't worried about that, they just keep going, and then the machine breaks down, and then they wonder what on earth happened. Which reminds me of a saying, the beauty of not planning and preparation is that unexpected things come and hit you by complete surprise. And it's completely true. Whereas, we're always looking at what are the threats to our business right now? What are the bits? What if this goes wrong? How can I fix that if that goes wrong? So then what can we put in place so it doesn't go wrong? But the very first time I felt like an expert and it wasn't like being stood on stage in front of a couple of hundred people. It wasn't doing a podcast. It was just having one-on-one conversations. And you talk to people and they say something and you go, why are you doing that? And they've got this really fixed idea about the best ways of attacking a particular thing. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. And it's, why are you doing it like that? Well, I thought if I did this, yeah, but just do this. Oh. And it's just they didn't know what they don't know, and therefore go out and try and find all these different ways of doing it. Whereas either it's from experience or you've read it in a book and you might have not have had that issue before, but it's like, well, it's obvious. Just do this, just do that. I think some of this comes from being well read. I'm definitely well read. I've read a lot of books in my life. And then being able to make these disparate connections from one random thing over there and another random thing over there and a third random thing over here, and then you pull them all together and you go, if you just do this in this particular way, then you'll get this result. And you can see people's eyes light up and go, oh my goodness me, that's so obvious. Why did I not think of that? And the reason we didn't think of that is because they've not read those books and were in a position, they hadn't put themselves in a position to be able to resolve that problem because they hadn't done the groundwork before. Whereas, because we worry about imposter syndrome and getting it wrong and what if we get found out and all this extra stuff, we're constantly learning. We're constantly putting stuff out there to improve what we do. We're constantly training our minds. I was going to say our bodies. Our bodies don't get trained. Heck, I wish they did. But we're constantly training our minds into making sure that we've got a really good grasp on actually what's going on. And where possible, we want to turn that knowledge that we might have learned in a book and put it into real life. So we will try stuff that other people wouldn't try in case it goes wrong. Whereas we try it and it goes wrong and then we fix it. And then afterwards, 5 years from now, when we meet someone who goes, oh, I was going to do that, but I didn't do it in case it goes wrong. We go, yeah, we did that. It went wrong. This is how you solve it. And we go, oh my gosh, that's so obvious. Yeah, that's what we thought once we realized how to do it right. So is that making sense? The first time we felt like a real expert is just in, and it's not a single time. It's not like, we have this one moment, because you might do something well. It's like basketball. The first time I realized I was a really good player, scoring 30 points a game, 33 points was my average. And I always wanted that, by the way, as an average, because that was Larry Bird's number, which is really weird when you put it in that context, because it's like, so you decided what you wanted your points average to be. Yeah. Well, that's just crazy. Well, why can't we do that in all sorts of things, and by the way, as you get older, that's harder to do, because the mind's going, yeah, I'm going to do this, and the body's like, you ain't doing that, mate. So this idea around you have this one singular moment. It's not that one singular moment. You might have what we call significant emotional events. So, for example, I was in a den, I was 9 years old, and my brother, I saw a spider, and it was this really ugly looking thing, and I said, "Oh, a spider," and my brother ran out, and the den fell on my head because he knocked the supporting thing, and it hit me on the head. So after that, I was always scared of spiders, because this thing, and I can see it now, the ugliest spider I've ever seen. So that's a significant emotional event. When we do goal setting and our eyes are closed and we're going into some hypnotic induction and we're flying forward in our timeline and then we're floating down into our goal and we're seeing it through our own eyes, listening to the sounds around us, feeling the feelings of being right there in that moment. When we do all that kind of stuff, the idea about that is that we're creating future significant emotional events so that they resonate with us on an emotional level and actually pull us towards that event happening because we know how good it's going to feel already, okay? So if you've never done anything like that, you should definitely do that. It's all NLP based. It works like a tree. But when you're an expert at something and someone comes up and answers a question, you don't get that feeling. You don't get that one-off, wow, this is going to be amazing. You just know that you were able to answer that one individual person's question and answer it really well and can speak about 25 minutes or an hour on that one thing, sorting that. And they're like getting bored of you now because you're just going, into a lot of depth. And so it's just one thing, and it's like, well, yeah, I just got lucky. It just happened to ask me the one thing that I know. And then somebody else comes along and asks you something completely disparate, separate, something completely out there. And you go, yeah, okay. So take a seat, 25 minutes, blah, 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 blah. They're getting bored again. And then the next person comes along. And this doesn't happen all in one night. It happens over a period of time. Could be weeks, days, months, years, whatever. And after the 50th person comes up and goes, oh, can you solve this? You go, yeah, easy. Just do this, do that, do that. When this happens, this will happen. When you do that, do this. Oh, well, that is easy. And it might be 50, it might be 75, it might be 100, it might be 200. And for some people, they never reach the point where they feel like an expert. Even though they are. They are, my friends, are the real experts. They're answering questions and they don't even know how good they are. And I put myself into that category right there. You have a problem, you come to me, tell me what the problem is, we'll sort it for you. I don't care what the problem is. Anything. Weight loss, relationships, we can look at it, tell me something for 5 minutes. It's one of the reasons why we're such good coaches is that we've got an ability to read someone in just a few sentences and instantly give the response that they need. It might not be the one for one, but it's definitely one that they need that can change their lives. Then obviously the problem is whether people actually take that advice or not. And if they don't pay for it, then they don't take the advice. That's why we charge for coaching. If they do pay for it, they're much more likely to take the advice. And the more they pay, the more they're going to take the advice on board, which is crazy. So, but that's just the way it goes. So that's how this works. And you're looking for this one moment where you go, oh, wow, I really am an expert. And it has to be said, after a coaching call, I will often come off a coaching call and I sit down and go, damn, I really do know what I'm doing. And then other days, I feel like I haven't got a clue. When it's your own stuff, great at solving everyone else's issues, but not your own. The cobbler's children has no shoes kind of thing, But there isn't one singular moment where you go, wow. But there are flashes of moments that add up over a period of time. And so if you're also on this journey, and we call this experience, by the way, and sometimes experience takes place from actual real life events that have happened that you've got experience from, plus the amount of stuff that you read and learn from other people's mistakes, and then you add that onto your experiences, and you come out with a totally unique way. We just did this on a property coaching call a couple of days ago, and we came up with this totally unique way of finding properties, big properties that other investors weren't going for, to split into one-bed apartments. And we're not going to tell you what it is on here. But this totally unique thing. And I was saying to the coaching client, I was like, oh my goodness me, that's so obvious. Why have I not thought of that? And she's like, that's amazing. Where did that come from? I'm like, it was just the fact that we had that conversation. That's what drew it out. And then you're like, oh, that's the solution to it. Okay. But it comes from all sorts of places, and there isn't a one singular place where you realise, wow, I really am an expert. It's just flashes of brilliance, if you like. So if you're feeling this yourself, then don't worry. It's not you wake up one morning and go, da, 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 like you've been bitten by the spider and now you're Spider-Man. You know, it's not that you wake up the next day and you're now an expert. You're like a proper grown up. And like, that's the other side of this, isn't it? Like, being a proper grown up. When was the first time you felt like a proper grown up? And I don't think I've ever felt like a proper grown up. I still feel like I'm a 9-year-old kid. I'm 47 now, for God's sake. We've done an awful lot, had a lot of success. And I still feel like the grown up. When I walk into a room and there's men in their 40s and 50s and in suits, I feel like I'm the one who doesn't have a clue. And yet you add up all of their wealth and I've got more than them. And I feel like I don't have a clue. And by the way, usually I'm on shorts and t-shirt and they look down on me anyway. Because they're like, look at this guy. And I actually quite like that. I like, people not knowing, that we know our stuff. Because then we've got an advantage, you see. So I hope that helps you. I hope that you wake up next morning and you're like, do I feel like an expert? Probably not, but maybe I am. And it's this self-belief that's the difficulty. It's not about you feeling like an expert. It's about you changing your self-belief and maybe writing down what makes an expert. Maybe it's 20 years experience. Well, we've got 20 years experience. We've got 10 years in digital marketing one way or another, not necessarily as a digital marketing agency, but through the businesses that I've owned. We've always run our own digital marketing. So we've got that experience in our own business, and now we share that with our clients, and their businesses are taking off as well because of digital marketing. So we've got that. Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? And, maybe in another 10 years we'll feel several levels further up on the digital marketing side, although we're still pretty good at it right now. And I make that statement based on what our clients are doing and the results that they're having. But what is it? Is it 20 years? Is it reading 200 books? I would say, yeah, all of that. Is it implementing the stuff that you've learned and having failures? Yeah, it's that as well. But if you've been doing it 18 months and you read 4 books, you ain't an expert. You might have had success, but you're not an expert. And I know, I forget the guy's name. I can picture him. It's not Jeff Goldblum. What's he called? Malcolm Dowell. Is it? I've forgotten his name. And he, the 10,000 hours thing. I can't remember his name. But the 10,000 hours, I would say is pretty relevant, but it's not just 10,000 hours. How many books you've read, the hours of experience of implementing. It's all of that kind of thing as well. So look, I hope that's useful for you. I hope it gives you a bit of an insight into, even today we don't feel like experts, even though we know what we're doing. It's just that self-belief. But I think it's worthwhile writing down what is an expert, what does one have, and what experiences have they got, how many books have they read, how much have they earned from doing their job as an expert. Very important as well. All right, hope that's useful. My name's Dan Latto, and we'll speak to you in the next podcast. Take care. Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.